Welcome back, everybody. Here with Coach Roye as well as Coach Saucier. So I'll introduce Coach Roye. Coach Roye, welcome back. Thanks for coming on again as a co-host.
Oh, thanks for having me, Drew. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. I'll talk hoops any night, anytime, anywhere. I'm really excited for this episode. Eric and I go way back. Had some great rivalry games over the years, and I've always had a ton of respect. And when you talk about coaches in the state, the word respect comes up a lot with Eric, and he's big news in the area now that he's left Conant after a long run to head over to Bow. So that's pretty exciting for your local audience. But anyway, welcome, Eric. We're really glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I guess, Drew, I'll get us rolling. Having been a regular visitor to the Pratt and seeing everything that you guys had there at Conant as far as the experience and the crowd and playing in that little place and the history and all those things, my first thought was it had to be really hard after this long stretch to walk away from there. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the experience out there, because in my opinion, there's no place like the Pratt to play a high school game.
Yeah, there is. I remember, so I coached the varsity team at ConVal for 2 years, and their gym's big. And then I get the job at Conant, and I remember the first time going to that gym, and I'm like, what is this? But, I mean, it took maybe not long for it to grow on me. I think the first game when the place was packed and everybody's on you and little kids are in the crowd just looking up to the players. There's nothing like it. Is a little Hoosiers, and leaving there was a really, really tough decision. I mean, one that had to be made, but hopefully, it'll be left in good hands. I have a lot of former players that coach with me. That are my JV coach, my assistant coach, and it'd be awesome if they could take over.
Yeah. The tradition is really something. And, I've always felt like when you look at coaches and programs, one of the tests is, are you always relevant? Is your team always somehow in the mix? You might not be a top three in a certain year, but are you somebody nobody wants to see in the tournament? And are your kids playing the game the right way? And that was one of the things I always loved about the Campbell Conant days when we played each other, was the level of intensity, but respect and sportsmanship was always high. And, the kids look forward to playing each other. I can remember you and I having a conversation one game. Oh, God, why can't we do this 20 times a year? This is a really good game. We had two strong teams, and, beating somebody by 40 or playing a game where the kids have to test themselves, there's such a difference in the experience. But I just wanted to say thanks. Those were great memories for me when I left Campbell to take with me. Drew, you want to jump in and get your questions out?
Yeah, for sure, Coach. Pleasure to be speaking with you today. Been super excited to talk to you for a while now, so glad to finally have you on, first of all. So I just wanted to kind of start off with your career. Like, where'd you end up going to high school? What sports did you play? That type of stuff, and then how you got into coaching.
I went to high school for Bishop Brady. I played for legendary coach Frank Monahan. He all started I started as a sophomore. Had a successful career, played in state finals, played against some great players, and then was lucky enough to get recruited, and I went and played at Clarkson University in New York, and that's really where my career kind of developed. I met my assistant coach at the time was Tobin Anderson, and he was my assistant coach my freshman year. Sophomore year, left to go to Lemoyne, and then came back for my junior and senior year as my head coach. And those that aren't familiar with Tobin Anderson, if you're familiar with the NCAA tournament, Purdue got upset by Fairleigh Dickinson last year. 16 seed beat a 1, and the head coach of Fairleigh Dickinson was my head coach in college. So a lot of the pressing stuff and everything that we do comes from him. He's the one that I drew a lot of the stuff that we do. I mean, I've designed some of the offensive stuff, but all the defense I learned from Tobe, and actually Tobe learned it from Rick Pitino. for the white in college, it was black and white. We run it at Conant as black and orange. So a lot of the coaching that I have is from very good coaches that I've been blessed to have over the years.
Wow, that's an awesome answer. So, how did you first get started at Conant? Did you coach anywhere big prior to that, or was Conant really just the first big place that you ended up starting out?
Yeah, no. So out of college, I got a math job at Conant at ConVal, and they were in need of a basketball coach. So I got hired there, and I was a varsity coach for the first 2 years. They hadn't made the playoffs since Jamie LaFlemme, I think, in '96. And I took over a team that was 2-16, and that first year we went 9-9, made the playoffs, and then the next year some people felt that was too hard, and they let me go, and it was a blessing because Conant hired me right off the spot. And so I coached against Joe Benangeli in Christmas tournament and stuff, and he liked what he saw, so he was like, "Hey, jump on board." And I was lucky enough to coach with him for 3 years and then take over the program.
Wow.
So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. So would you first start around 2005-ish? Is that right?
So let's see. My first year at Conant was 05-06.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when you first started there, were you a little bit nervous now, like just starting out in Division III as, one of the younger coaches in Division III and seeing all these other teams with a lot of, there's a lot of good coaches in Division III, and how did you feel like you stacked up against them?
Actually, like I was just excited because I varsity. I mean, I was an assistant coach in college after I finished for a year before I came back home and got my job. So I assisted with Tobin for a year, and then I came home, and I got the varsity job at ConVal, which is D2, and I was lucky enough to be there where kids also bought into the system, and they played hard, and then to get that head coaching job again. It was more excitement, so I wasn't nervous at all. And credit to Joe. Joe was really good. When I was the assistant coach, I didn't feel like I was an assistant. I felt like I was a co-head coach. Like he did the offense, and he's like, "You take care of the defense." So it was really good.
Yeah, for you, excuse me. One of the things that I noticed about your team is that you like to keep games super low scoring, and you seem to have just be really good at winning these low scoring games, whether it be like a 35-32 type game when everybody else in the division is trying to win, 55-48 or whatever it might be. What is it about defense? I mean, we already talked about that strategy, but why do you keep games like lower scoring primarily?
See, that's a myth. I don't like to keep games low scoring.
That is a myth.
Coach Roye will tell you we look to run every. Some years you have the talent to do it, sometimes you don't, but we're always trying to run. And if you look at the game this year, like a lot of people have come up to me and they're like, "What happened in the Hopkins game, 29-28?" But anybody that watched it, we weren't walking the ball up the floor. We're full court pressing. If I wanted to slow the game down, I would full court press.
Right.
Just sometimes you have a little bit more offensive players that are more talented, that are able to put the ball in the basket, and sometimes you aren't. But with that said, sometimes your offense isn't always there, but you can always play defense. Right. And I've always been taught defense wins, and I mean, we haven't been proven wrong yet. Like I haven't always had the most talent, but right. Like Coach said, we're always relevant to where. And it's a credit to the kids because they buy in and they listen. They don't have to, especially nowadays. They could easily be like, "Nope, coach, we're not going to do it." But they buy in, and it's a credit to all the players that I've had over the 19 years.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Eric. Being an old fogey these days, watching guys come in, I saw a lot of guys in the last decade come in and say, "Well, we're going to run my system." And they didn't have the kids to run that system. As you know, I had Campbell teams that scored 65 points a game, but I also had Campbell teams that scored 30 points a game. And it really is about coaching to what you have. It's not college. You can't recruit. And having seen that game, I love that game. I thought that was a great game. And I remember talking to, we had Dave Morissette on a while ago, and it was right before you played him in the regular season, and he actually asked us, did they stop scoring at halftime or what happened in that game? And I said, no, Dave, it was two good, hard-nosed defensive teams, and neither team shot it very well, but it was a really good game. But that's something people miss a lot, especially in this era, I think, where everybody likes to shoot the bomb. People come in and go, well, we're going to run, we're going to press, we're going to shoot. And they have three starters who are also on the defensive line of the football team. And it's a disaster waiting to happen. So that's a big part of being relevant, I think, is being able to look at your team and say, how can I help them be successful? And that was something that was very evident with your team this year. And I can speak to it, Drew. He had teams that flew up the floor like you've never seen. And they pounded my teams for a few years. I do remember that. But I do have a Joe question for you, because I did enjoy coaching against Joe, but what a character. It seems to me like you guys were totally different personalities. He had the orange socks and the plaid sport coats and was a pretty flamboyant guy, and you were kind of all business when you were coaching with him. Did that mesh well, or did you have to learn to adapt to him?
Credit to Joe. He let me be who I am, and he's obviously who he is. He was more offensive minded, and I was more defensive minded, and it worked out perfectly. Like I said, he was all about, you take the defense, you do what you got to do with these guys. He would give me 15 to 30 minutes in practice to do the defense, and then he would do his offensive stuff. So it was well. Yeah, we are opposites, but it was a well mesh.
Yeah. So, Drew?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about your state championships, because you've won a lot of them. So I figured that we'd go into that and start off kind of like maybe work through each one and speak a little bit on each state championship if you can.
Everyone is special in its own way. The first 3 I was an assistant coach, and we had a lot of talent. I mean, I remember my first year, we had the Letourneau twins who were both 6'3", and we had Biggie who was 6'8". Mm-hmm. And and then we went like 6'4" and 6'3", so we were huge. And then I get the head coaching job. All those guys graduate, and we're 6'1", 6'1", 5'10", 5'8". Like we're small. So the biggest transition was when I took over. Joe was his own guy, and so he wanted me to coach zone. So I did it because he was the head coach. But when I took over, that's when we went full court man-to-man and changed the whole entire program. And it's that first team that I had that I credit all the success to because they're the ones that grinded it out. They're the ones that were like, we're going to stick to this. We trust coach, because they easily, after we lost that first game to Stevens, after winning 63 in a row, they could have easily said like, no, we're not going to buy into them, but they stuck with it. We went on another streak, and it just changed the whole program. So going through them, they're all special, because whether you're supposed to win it, because if you're supposed to win it, it's really, really hard, as Pat will tell you. It's hard to win. Like everybody can say, oh, you're the favorites and all that stuff, but until you're there, and it's really hard. So you can be, if you're the favorite, it's so hard to win. And if you're not the favorite and you win it, that's a surprise too. So any time you can win one, it's really special.
Yeah, so you've seen kind of a change just in the style that basketball is played, obviously, throughout your coaching tenure. Can you speak a little bit on that and how you've had to adapt your coaching style to that, if at all?
It's funny you asked that, Drew, because if you had my assistant coach, Jimmy Peard, on here right now, he would speak to that right away. So Jimmy played for me for 3 years. He played for me for 4 years, but I was the head coach for 3 years. And he was one of the guys that bought into the system and so on and so forth. And then he graduated, and he's been my assistant coach for the last 10 years. And the last couple of years in practice, he'll come up and he'll say, Coach, you would have killed us if we did it. Like, you're not as tough anymore. And I'm like, well, Jimmy, times have changed. You have to change. Have my expectations changed? Absolutely not. Like, and he'll be the first to tell you, like, I have certain things, like, This is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to do. And if you don't buy in, then you're not on the ship. But the way I address that is a little different than I used to when I first was younger and times were different, especially players.
Okay. So for you, I mean, one of the most fun and enjoyable parts been about the most recent seasons, just like the way that things have changed, on the court with the style that you guys play, and also just kind of seeing things shift around the division a little bit. And inevitably, you're going to have people who are going to move out and they're going to hire new coaches. So you're kind of you're probably the most experienced Division III coach up until last season.
Yeah, there's been a lot of moving parts over the years. I think I know I'm the longest tenured or was, and then I think it goes like Nate Camp, who I was going into my 16th year, and then Camper I think is like 13.
Yeah.
And then after that it's 1, 2, 3, 4 years maybe. It's been a lot of. But to answer your first question, what do I enjoy the most? It's the players. Like I tell the guys all the time, and they'll tell you, like, guys, there are going to be days where you don't like me because I'm going to hold you accountable. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, if I go into that locker room and I see smiles on your faces because you just won a huge game, that's all that matters. Like, and if you ever look at any of the championships we won, like, I don't go out there and celebrate with the guys. They're the ones that did everything. I just like to stand back and watch a smile on their faces. And that's why I coach, to see those smiles. Like this year when we beat Kearsarge to go to the finals, like, it gives me goosebumps, because when I walked in that locker room, to see the smiles on those guys' faces after all the work that we had done this year and I told them that's why we do this, or that's why I do this, because I love to see that. Now, it's not always easy, and I tell them that all the time. Like, it's hard work, and you guys, I'm going to hold you accountable. But when they do everything that you ask, and they put in the time, and they see the results, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
As a coach, there's nothing better.
I think a lot of people think of.
Can I jump in, Drew?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have a point, a funny story. I don't know if Eric remembers it or not, but one of the things that people don't realize is the amount of preparation that goes into getting your kids ready for a big game or any game. And Eric's teams are always considered, your teams are always considered amongst the best prepared in the whole state, Eric. And I do remember that. And back years ago when we were coaching against each other, there wasn't as much film. And you had to go out and see games a lot. And I don't know if you remember this or not, Eric, but you were at Stevens, and you were playing Stevens, and they had Caleb Tarzewski and Kevin O'Connor. That was a talented Stevens team. Tarzewski goes off to play at Arizona, 7 foot tall, and we had, at that point in time, we had a really good rivalry. Conant Campbell, and the preparation was such that when anybody on either team called a set play, the whole bench would get up and go, watch the back screen. One of the ways that you guys always heard us was running the option off of what you wanted to run, because we would take away the first option and then you'd burn us. But I'm at Stevens, and I'm up in the upper deck there, and I'm diagonally across from your bench, and the ball went out of bounds near where I was sitting. And I caught your eye from up top, and I called your out of bounds play for you from up top. I was calling Hatchet. I remember that. And I remember driving home and thinking, wow, there's another nut out there who prepares as hard as I do. But that was always fun. I used to love those games, because you guys would call something, and you mentioned Jimmy Peer. Jimmy was a big one for this. We'd take something away, and he'd turn around and look at me and go, Coach, cut it out. I always had a running conversation with him. But the preparation is what people miss. They don't understand the film study, and you have to have kids who buy in to apply what they saw in the film and what you're trying to teach them. That's a big part of it. And but maybe you could talk a little bit about, when you say the hard work and the preparation, what some of that looks like.
Yeah. And to go along with that, people always ask, or I've had young coaches call me when they're starting up a program or when they take over a program and they're like, hey, do you have any advice? I'm glad to give them. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but I'm glad to tell them what I do. But my biggest thing is they always say, like, how do you get your kids to buy in? And there's no magic potion or anything like that. But in my belief is if the kids realize how hard you're working for them, then they'll buy in. If I'm asking the kids to work hard, I tell them I'm going to work double that. Like, they get scouting reports, I watch film, I'm going to give you everything you need to be successful. I mean, I'm still old school, Pat. Like, I don't have the tablets. Like, I still have my board where all my stats are done, and I have my managers do the stats and the shot chart. I'll still go to gyms because I like to see teams in person, and I'd like to watch basketball. Like, you can watch it on film. We don't have highlight or anything at Conant, but to see teams in person and see what they do, I just like doing that. But to talk about the preparation, I mean, you got to prepare for practice. You got to prepare for upcoming games. You have to make adjustments based on those games and those practices. You got to watch a ton of film if you want to win. I mean, there's coaches out there that do, and there's coaches that don't. But I truly believe if you want your kids to buy into what you're doing, you have to work twice as hard. Because if they see that you're working hard, then at least at Conant, it's been successful where they're like, okay, like coach has my back. Coach is here for me. And I think that helps.
Okay. So coach, you've been, in my mind, I think in a lot of people's minds, you were like the best Division III basketball coach up until recently going to Bo. We'll get into that in a minute. But for you, at what point did you feel like you got to be like a top tier coach in the division as a head coach?
To be honest, Drew, like I don't look at myself as like a top tier coach. You know, like I don't read. I mean, I think what Dave Haley does at New Hampshire Sports Page and media, I think it's all great. But I'm old school. Like I don't read that stuff. I don't care. Like guys will come in and be like, I don't want to hear it, guys. You know, I just enjoy coaching. I just love coaching. Like Pat said, anytime you can talk X's and O's, like when he asked me to do this, absolutely. Like any coach can call me any time of day and I will talk X's and O's until the sun goes down. Like I just love basketball. And I just love everything about it. And since I can't play anymore, I love the challenge of being able to coach. And Pat, Coach Roye will tell you, like, there's no better feeling than when you coach guys and then they go out and they execute to perfection.
Right.
It's like, wow, like that's unbelievable. So, you know, I mean, I don't even know how many wins I have. And that's no lie. Like I have all my books, so I could easily add it up. But I know there's awards for 100 wins and 200 wins, and you get these plaques. I don't have any of those plaques because I don't, it's not about me. We've been successful at Conant, and I tell people all the time, and they're like, you're full of it. And I'm not. We've been successful at Conant, and I say we because I'm always about we. We've been successful at Conant because the kids buy in, the community buys in, everybody buys in, and everybody plays hard. You know, my basketball philosophy is 4 things. 1 is respect. Like you're respectful wherever you go. You're respectful to the referees. I've never gotten a technical in 22 years. It's hard to, I know people don't believe that with the way I am and how animated I am on the sideline, but I've never gotten a technical because that takes away from, that means you're selfish, right? And that goes along with being respectful. Right. And respect also goes on the floor too when you're playing. If you're not playing hard, that's disrespectful to your teammates. You know, so respect is number 1 with me, wherever you are. And that's during the season, in the off season. If you're at the restaurant and you're wearing Conant basketball, and now it'll be Bo basketball, like you better be respectful. And if I hear different, you're not going to play. So respect is number 1. 2 is discipline. You got to be disciplined. Like you have to buy into the system and you have to trust your teammates and you have to be disciplined. You have to stay in a stance. You have to box out, so on and so forth. 3rd, hard work. I mean, if you don't work hard, you're never going to win. I mean, that's just how it goes. And then the last is defense. So respect, discipline, hard work, and defense. You stick to those 4 things, you're going to be successful. And that's what my philosophy is.
Awesome. That's a great answer, Coach. So for you, you guys were so good for so long with that run. There was plenty of times where you could have easily said, I want to go somewhere else, but you stuck with it. Why did you stick with it all those years, and why was this year the time to make a change?
Great question. A lot of people have said that over the years, like, why are you at Conant? Why are you coaching Division III? You should go to Division I, or you could go to college, or what is that? And it's like I answered before, I don't care about that stuff. I just want to coach. I love coaching.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work to build a program to get to where you want to be. And we're successful at Conant. The kids work hard. Why would I want to leave? The hardest choice was leaving Conant this year, and the reason is because I had some health issues that I had to go through, and I still have follow-ups that I have to go through with that. And it's just easier and the bow job opened up. And I will tell you, and I said this in my interview, there's only a few other places where I would leave Conant and coach. And there were probably one or two, and Bo was one of them. So when it opened up, and with everything that happened this past year, I had the opportunity, and it wasn't easy, but it was a choice I had to make. And it still hasn't sunk in. It won't until I meet the players and I get in the gym and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's why I had to make the choice.
Gotcha. So for you now, starting kind of back from square one, however, you have that name around the state. Everybody in basketball knows who you are. For you, like, to go back and you're really kind of building from the ground up. They've been good for a while, but like in terms of just kind of building your system there after being established at Conant for a long time, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I'm actually excited for the new opportunity to start over and try to build another program. It's another challenge. I always like challenges, but it's going to be. I watched from last year, and it's going to be the same kind of thing. Like, they're going to have to learn how to play man-to-man, and the offensive concepts are going to come in. And we'll take the summer. We're not going to play a lot of games this summer. We're going to get in the gym, and the players got to get used to me, and I want to get used to them. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing this summer, is just trying to build that trust and that continuity between players and coach.
All right. Final thing that I have for you, you might have more you want to add on, and Coach Roye might have some more for you. For you, just how successful your program has been over at Conant. It's amazing. It's just outstanding how you guys have been able to be so relevant for so long and win as much as you have. People who aren't a basketball coach but want to be successful in whatever they do in life, what are your fundamentals for them? You went over the 4 things for basketball. For life, whether it's you want to, be a good, employee of a company, or you want to be a good family member, good friend, or whatever it is. What are your guidelines to being a successful person in life?
Me or my players?
You.
Oh, me for successful. I think the biggest thing for me is, I'd like to be able to make both successful. That's the first thing. I'd like to be able to build another program there is, but I feel like I've already been successful, and I'm going to tell you, not because of the wins we've had at Conant. I'm going to tell you because my assistant coach over the last 10 years played for me. My JV coach played for me. I've had 3 other former players that came back that coached with me. I have players that are playing in college that come back during Christmas break to play. I had 10 to 12 players that I haven't talked to in like 3 or 4 years. When I've got the bow job, reach out and wish me luck. It's crazy. We talk about the community at Conant, the alumni game we have every year. Guys come back just to go to that. This year at the state championship, I had like 25 former players, and some of them are 30, 33 years old, that just came back to watch the game. That, to me, is, I can't even tell you, I can't even put into words how much that means. And to me, that's the biggest success, to watch these guys that I had in in high school, grow up to be fine young men and be respectful. What I preach the most is that's how I measure success, not by the wins and losses, but by the young men that they've become, and see what they've done. And the fact that they give back to the program says a lot. It says a whole heck of a lot.
Now we had Dave Morissette join us, and Dave and I spent some time coaching together at the college level, and we were reminiscing about how many of our college players went on to be good high school coaches. Jay Starr, who a lot of those guys, and Dave talked about many of the same things, that he was really proud that they had gone on and done well, but he was also proud of the dads they've become and that type of thing. And I know in my career, there's nothing better than a text, a phone call, or an accidental bump into a former player and see that they're doing well. And, the conversations are almost never about basketball. They're almost always something they learned or what's going on in their life now. Or, when I retired from Hopkinton, same kind of thing. I heard from a lot of former players from a lot of different places, and that was really heartwarming. That is a definition of success. That is a big definition of success, is when you can look at them and know that the experience helped them be better people and, successful in what they wanted to do. So I think, Drew, you're going to find from our podcast, we've had some great people on, Dave Morissette, Nate Camp, Eric tonight, and yet you hear the same message coming from all of these guys. It's about what kind of people are we becoming, and are we sacrificing for the group, and that type of thing. So I think you're developing a theme here in your podcast, Drew.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
all right. Well, thanks so much, Coach Saucier. Just so much respect for you and everything that you've done. So super glad to have you join us today. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Anytime you want to talk hoops, I'm here.